Get your paychecks up to 2 days faster with Early Pay. True story. Welcome to Huntington.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to yet another episode of The Week That Was. I'm Saeed Khan with a great group of people, someone who's a little bit camera shy, but I'm sure that he can expose himself.
I've never heard that accusation about me.
Or exposing yourself, Bill, but that means a whole different thing in a whole different show. Well, we've got joining us some all good veterans and good friends of the show. We have former mayoral chief of staff and now head of Moment Strategies, Alexis Wiley. We have columnist for Deadline Detroit, Greg Bowens. Also columnist for Deadline Detroit, Nancy Derringer.
Hey.
When he takes the niqab off, we have attorney Bill Seikaly. And of course, we have editor-in-chief of Deadline Detroit, Allan Lengel, joining us. So, big week happening. And let's go ahead and start it off with DOJ versus DON. It looks like the Department of Justice has now disclosed that, in fact, yes, former President Donald Trump is under investigation, perhaps spurred on by some of what the January 6th committee hearings have been showing, or what information they have been sharing with the Justice Department. But we find that Attorney General Merrick Garland, in an interview with Lester Holt, I believe on NBC, said, yes, in fact, the former president is under investigation. Where is this going to go?
I think it's inevitable. Look, Merrick Garland came in and took over from, the crazy Trump people and really tried to say, this is going to be back to the old Justice Department. We're going to be very even-handed. We're not going to be political. And I think he's been so reluctant to go into something that no matter what you do, no matter how straight you play it, it's going to be political. But I think with the January 6th committee, with all the evidence, they have no choice but to put together. There are so many. The worst, you could pick the most incompetent federal prosecutor who could string together a conspiracy charge here, or multiple charges. So I think we're inevitably, but we're not going to see it before the election time. These things take a while to put together, but I think it's inevitable. We're going to see an indictment. That's my
which elections are you talking about? 2022 or
2024? This year.
Okay.
2024. I think we'll have something before that.
Oh, what beautiful music!
Oh, is it coming through clearly? I'm sorry. Should we tell all your viewers? I'm sorry. My babysitter called off today. My kid is in the background, actually not watching Coco Melon, but Kelsey's Corner. So I will try to stay on mute.
We have all been there.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, no problem.
But I unmute it because I want to jump in on this because I feel like we need to bet on this.
I think that our audience needs to realize that your kid's not watching Real Housewives. So
he is not.
Or the week that was.
That's normally when she's sitting with mommy and I got a Chardonnay or something like that. That's when she watches Housewives. That's when she watches Housewives.
But not us. Okay, Alexis.
No, you know what? She's been on the show before. But all right. So here's where I want to jump in. I feel like we need to make a bet on this because I don't believe anything's going to come of this. I believe that we're going to have lots of conversations. We're going to watch videos. We're going to see all sorts of stuff. And then at the end of the day, he will not be indicted and it will be all quietly handled. The fact that he is out back stomping in D.C., planning speeches, endorsing people, I just think that it won't happen because at the end of the day, I think despite the crazy that we experienced, I really think people are going to be like, or the powers that be, right? I'm kind of like, there's a powers that be somewhere they're going to be like, look, he's still an American president and we got to figure out some sort of exit ramp for him. Maybe he agrees that he won't run again. Maybe something happens, but I just don't see him getting indicted. I just don't.
Nancy, do you think he wants to be indicted? Let me ask you the provocative question. Do you think he wants to be indicted?
No, but I agree with Alexis. I don't think he's going to be indicted. I think this is going to be that in the end, the norms keepers of Washington will keep the norm, and he'll skate. Georgia is a different story. He might be indicted in Georgia on state charges, but I don't think it's going to come from the feds. However, seeing that Bill is back with us in his under cover of darkness,
Mr. X.
Actually, what the system has figured out is that I have a face made for radio. And,
but I want the lawyer's opinion on this.
Right.
Yeah,
in our witness protection program.
I happen. I sadly agree with what Alexis and Nancy said. The fact of the matter is that Merrick Garland is a traditionalist in every step of every meaning of that word.
Yep.
He does not want to be the attorney general when the very first former president, is indicted. He will not stop nor get in the way of that happening in one of the states, but he doesn't want to do it.
Right.
Well,
Georgia,
New Jersey, New York. There are a lot of
DC.
Investigations going on
Well.
About this guy. But I unfortunately do not think that Merrick Garland's Justice Department will be the entity that indicts him.
Yeah, that's.
So I will tell you, I'll bet anybody $10 on it and pray that I lose.
I won't further undermine the justice system by taking bets. I want to keep it legal. But let me say this: I do believe that he will be charged with something. And I think that he has to be in order to shore up people's confidence. Alexis and Counselor, your comments in relationship to why he won't be charged as a matter of sort of like due course to protect the establishment and the office of the presidency, I really don't think holds anymore. I think in the 21st century, when we look around the world and we see former heads of state getting charged with stuff, even in Israel, it's almost a matter of course. You're lucky if you get out of being prime minister of Israel without getting charged with something. It seems like
Greg. Can I just? Yeah. Can I would just. I want to ask you to clarify your statement. Do you think he's going to be indicted for the January 6th issues, the insurrection issues, or do you think he's just going to be indicted? See, I think he may be indicted. I just don't think it's going to be over the January 6th insurrection, which is too bad. He should be. And part of the problem is that the Republicans don't play by the old rules anymore, but the Democrats still want to. And that's why it's not going to happen.
I think that the other piece too is we got to remember we have a president who's almost 80 years old, right? When we talk traditionalist, he is a product of the Senate, and while I full support of him, I'm just saying we don't have a president right now who is necessarily going to be that person who wants to upend.
Break the China
status quo.
Well, but he's got a hands-off.
China, exactly.
He's got a hands-off approach. I mean, the DOJ is supposed to be
hands-off approach.
I believe that. Okay. I believe that.
I think this is my feeling is that look, this will be a multiple count indictment. I think there's going to be a federal charge. It's January 6th is going to be one count or two counts included in part of a conspiracy. The conspiracy is to undermine the whole, through fake electorates, through trying to meddle with other, Secretary of States, doing all this stuff. The fact that they were able to disrupt the certification is just one count. I think they're going to throw it in. I think they always do. Who knows? It could be a 30-40 count indictment, and it'll be January 6th will be two of those counts.
Conspiracy to commit fraud. Maybe it won't be sedition, per se.
Obstruction of election.
So I am on a weird side on this, in that I actually don't think it's good for the country if he gets indicted. I'm just going to say that because I really feel like we are at a point where we are so divided. If these folks were ready to storm the Capitol because he lost an election, what are they going to do if he gets indicted?
That's why you send them on to jail.
But here's the problem.
I just feel like we got to find.
So assume, Alexis, I don't in most situations, I would not disagree with that statement. But so, what message are we sending if we don't indict him? I mean, I think that's the problem with him not being indicted. I think that,
but then we indict him and then
we are
nothing
severely
happens, right?
I'm sorry.
Well,
I'm just saying the penalties. No one's gonna throw him in jail for more than a month or anything like that.
I think if he went to jail,
penalties being
there are two penalties. That one, if he got convicted under the 14th Amendment, he wouldn't be allowed to run again. And I think that sends a better message than anything else that I can think of. And that's why I wish that they would begin these proceedings. I happen to agree, Alexis, that your thinking is going to prevail, or what you expressed is going to prevail. I think there are arguments on both sides, but the fact of the matter is that if the fundamental problem with Trump and his supporters at this point is they simply don't believe in democracy. They believe in having power. They don't believe in democracy. They don't want to admit that to themselves or anyone else. But if we allow this to continue, we're giving up on democracy.
Well, I do need to be able to say this. America is not more divided than we have been before. The Civil War was the ultimate divide. Now, before that, if you want to go back to World War II, you might recall that the Nazi Party was having rallies in New York City, in the stadium, before World War II. So the idea that somehow we're way more polarized than we ever have been before, I really just don't think it rings true. What does ring true is that we're able to communicate a lot more and see that polarization a lot quicker because of the internet. But we have, as Americans, it's part of our birthright, our inheritance, to be in conflict in order to push this democracy forward.
Okay, Nancy.
I just want to say, I want to step up here as a person who uses the English language more or less professionally. Most people misuse the word dilemma. They use it to describe any decision that they don't want to make, or just any puzzling situation. But what a dilemma is formally is a choice between two equally bad outcomes. That's why we say you're on the horns of a dilemma, because both horns poke. And I think what Bill is saying is exactly right. If we let him skate, we're giving up on democracy. But if we indict him, that's also going to open a can of shit worms. And so it's just, he really is the worst person in the world right now. And having seen that photograph of him that was taken yesterday at his golf course, which is going around Twitter, I'm really thinking that perhaps he's going to have like a major stroke like any minute now, and then that will just kind of
that's sending KFC buckets. That's sending more KFC. The question I have for Bill: what happens 2024? The Oath Keepers have some type of plot going to overthrow, and they do some of the disruptive things, and then they get charged with all these kinds of charges of obstruction, all that, and could the lawyers say, wait a minute, you never charged Trump with any of this stuff, why should our clients let's work out something? Is that
it's not
or not?
It's not a defense. It's called discretion, prosecutorial discretion. And the fact of the matter is that the prosecutor gets to decide who gets charged and who doesn't get charged, and you can't dispute it and you can't raise it as precedent. So unfortunately, or maybe in this case, fortunately, no, it won't have any impact. Not a legal precedent.
I'd like to invoke a former vice president, Vice President Hoynes from West Wing, when Tim Matheson was actually Otter, and he says, if we don't do this, isn't this an indictment on our entire American society? I am not going to sit here and hear you badmouth America. Let's go. But I think that the point that
I think we ought to say hi to our new guest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hey there.
She loves Deadline Detroit.
And by the way, Nancy,
our ratings are going through the roof.
What?
the point that you made about being a professional grammarian, I think is fine. But some of us actually prefer to maintain our amateur status for the
Yeah,
Olympics.
no, it's like Allan, who said secretaries of state. No, he said Secretary of States. That's
Right,
it.
right.
Secretary of States.
I
It's
still stick to
Secretaries
that. I
of
think it
State.
should be Secretary of States.
And attorneys general. Never mind. Go ahead.
Right, attorneys general. Right.
But when you see a bunch of them standing there, don't you see them as attorney generals? That's one of those anomalies. Well,
Yes.
when it comes to the idea about anybody being A, above the law, and B, able to run from justice, we have our own situation with former Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick. It seems as though his efforts to raise money have now come under the scrutiny of the federal authorities, who are now going after his crowdfunding and the proceeds from his book. Apparently, he raised $2,000 in cash out of a total bid for $8,000. I think probably a better investment is he should have taken those 2,000 and rolled them over into the Mega Millions lottery tickets, which is I think about $1 billion tonight.
Over. Yeah.
That's for me, man. I already won that. So
Thanks for reminding me to go pick up my tickets after this.
I spoke to him this week, and here's
Kwame.
Kwame, and I know not everybody believes him, and I told him there's people who when they saw the whole thing about the house, I told them, I said, people are, it's same old Kwame again, and here's his explanation. He says that he was going to have a baby shower in Detroit, but the baby was born prematurely, so they just had it online. And he says he raised $1,600. He says, as for the house, he said there were some relatives who knew they had gone to Florida. They saw this amazing house, and they put it up on the GoFundMe or whatever. It was another platform, but they put it up there and as a wish list. But he claims that there was never any intention of raising money for that, and he says they didn't raise any money for that. So the question becomes: look, the feds. I think he owes the IRS and like $193,000. He still, I think, owes the city of Detroit some money, but
a lot of money, Allan.
Yeah, a lot of money. But he says that he is making payments to the feds on a regular basis. I don't know how much. He wouldn't tell me how much it was, but it's probably not a lot. But so
okay.
Anyway, that being said, have at it.
Queen Solomon's ruling. It's fair for them to go after the book proceeds, although knowing what books earn, that's not going to be much. It's unfair to go after the baby's diapers. I'm sorry. People give you things in a baby shower. It's intended for the baby. To buy baby stuff, and so that's what I say.
Well, I don't, Nancy. I don't think that's what's going on. I mean, look at it. I think that Kwame's still one of the best communicators I've ever met. I mean, he can spin it as well as anybody I've ever met. I'm very sad by what happened because the man's got incredible talent. He's brilliant. He had a lot of things going for him. I'm sad about how he handled that. But he said, if you want to take my baby's diapers, the fact of the matter is that if the money is paid to you and you have it in an account, somebody who's going through collection gets it.
Yeah, I know. I understand that.
It's not any different than a paycheck. So, look, the law. The law theoretically provides him with enough money to support his family.
Alexis got something to say there.
I want to jump. I'm sorry. I need to jump in.
Go for it.
Okay. So I think for one, he's, like we said, he's a smart man, right? A smart man. This to me was an example of people trying to be slick. Okay. And it was it doesn't make sense. If you've got family and friends who want to do a baby shower for you and give you any kind of money, whatever, they should be able to donate it in, you could have a private GoFundMe. You could have had, there's a way to do it. He has attorneys. Why wouldn't you have called somebody before you did that? It was either slick or super dumb. But if the feds are coming after you, why wouldn't you expect that? Why wouldn't you think they would do that?
If they put
Oh, I
it
think
in a bill,
look at again. I knew Kwame at one time. I negotiated with Kwame in a couple of cases, and his attorneys. I think that he doesn't want to pay attorneys anymore. I think that's part of the problem.
And you know
Well,
what the
there's
thing
always
is?
FedEx.
The House. I
FedEx
think,
still
how
works.
to do
yeah, I think the House was the thing. I don't think a baby shower. How much you're going to get from a baby shower? I think when the House came up, I think the feds were like, "That's it.
yeah.
We're going to go all aggressive on this guy." And he, like I say, he claims for whatever. Some people don't believe him. He claims that some women who were just saying, "Oh, this would be great. You know, you should get something for this," and he claims they never had any intention of raising money, but they were asking for money for the. I think there was an ask for that, but he says he didn't know about that. But what?
Hey, Bill.
And let me say
Yes.
this.
Let me ask you just real fast. If they put this in
Somebody's
his
calling?
wife's name, if they put this in his wife's name, what would that bring any new rules
No
to bear?
difference.
No difference? Okay.
No, actually, it could if it was just in his wife's name.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean,
Because they've
if-
come after they've asked to take the garnish both accounts with their. I guess they have a joint name on there, but
well, joint account. They can get to joint accounts. They can get half of joint accounts. But here's the problem: if the feds can prove, or believe they can prove, that this was a way to skirt his obligation, then they're going to get all of it.
Yeah. Okay.
If they can say this wasn't about a baby shower, who sends out 200,000 crowdfund notices to raise money for a baby shower? And you
what?
gotta have.
Guys, we're missing this big public discussion in relationship to what's going on. The media has been paying attention to this, and it got out there and it zoomed around as if he was thumbing his nose at the establishment one more time. And I'll be honest with you, as an African-American male, somebody who's lived in the public life, I need to see Kwame succeed. His success after such a dramatic fall and this miracle of him being pardoned. I mean, you got to recognize a miracle when you see it, man. This guy got 28 years and Trump pardoned him.
Clemency.
What connection did he,
Clemency, not pardon.
I couldn't
Clemency.
more.
Clemency. And so we need to see him succeed in some kind of way. Redemption has got to be real. And I'm telling you guys, man, race, it always comes down to race in some kind of level. Now, white boy Rick, who terrorized my neighborhood when I was growing up and got all caught up with the feds, running around with them gangs, it was a horrible time. And he got, his time, and he gets this redemption story, and people, push for him. I need to see some redemption stories for brothers. I really do. And I think that Kwame presents the best one. Now, he needs some better PR people or somebody to be working with him so he can stay on that redemption road. And I know
Greg,
that I don't want to sound like a broken record, man, but it's like, come on, give us a break. What about us? Do we ever get some redemption going on here?
Greg, I get that. Yes, there should be redemption. But at the same time, if you make it hard for anybody to redeem you because you're doing stuff like setting up GoFundMes and putting a picture of the house and saying you're raised for the house and then have to say, oh, no, it's just for diapers. Give me a break. He needs to have some accountability for himself, too. He needs to recognize he got a miracle and act right. That's what he's got to do. And I'm really hoping, I hope, Allan, next time he calls you, you say, we had to repeat this conversation that him getting out was a miracle and he needs to behave as such. And make sure
he has been behaving as such. He's got married. He's had a new kid. He's doing a ministry. I mean, how is he not behaving as such?
And forgot that the government was always going to try to come for him. And any idea that he was going to buy a beautiful house in Florida with, huge house while people in his city that he once led are still struggling, are still trying to figure things out. Yet you're asking people to give you money for a house in Florida? Get out of here. I'm done with you when I hear that. I'm sorry.
You know, I
You should be able to dream a new dream, baby.
I am really stuck in the middle between Greg and Alexis. This is a toughie for me. I happen to agree with everything Greg says, and because I admire Kwame Kilpatrick in terms of his ability to communicate, you know, so I've met Bill Clinton. He had that kind of charisma. President Obama has that kind of charisma. But I'd put Kwame Kilpatrick right up there. He has that kind of charisma.
Yeah, no question.
He
Agreed.
is an amazing person, and so for those reasons, I'd like him to succeed. Unfortunately, in my opinion, Alexis has a point, but I think the only issue she didn't touch on was this. Probably because of the way that Carolyn raised him, he has a sense of entitlement that gets anybody who has it into trouble.
Oh, man. You gonna blame the mama? Really? Come on, man.
Well, I happen to like Carolyn too. I happen to like Carolyn. I wish that I had that mama. I do. I do. But Carolyn believed from the beginning and convinced him. Greg, this is not a compliment. I happen to wish that more parents were like this with more of their kids. But she said, you are destined for greatness, and convinced him that it was true. And unfortunately, sometimes when you do that, you get a sense of entitlement.
You know what? Black kids don't get a sense of entitlement. Now, you need to recognize, no. Black children do not get a sense of entitlement in the same kind of way that white kids are born with. And any kind of encouragement that you can give a young brother or sister to go out there and conquer the world is there. Now, we don't get that entitlement. You don't. There's no black kid that's inheriting Johnson & Johnson or the Ford estate or any of that stuff that's able to run around here and do whatever it is that they want to do. That's not true. The entitlement is built into the system for them. And so the idea that you have parents that want to push you hard to do and tell you that you can do anything and be anything and rise to any level is a really big deal. That's a plus, man. That's a plus.
Right. He's not talking about like inheriting wealth. He's talking about an attitude. An attitude.
I understand that, and the attitude generally comes from wealth and from structural racism. Yes, it does. Your kids are born with a sense of entitlement that my kids will never have.
Right.
You should meet my kid then, because she does not have a sense of entitlement.
Greg, I think that's absolutely right. My only thing with this specific situation we're talking about with former Mayor Kilpatrick is a level of, why would you believe that if you had a healthy ego that had a sense of the real world of what was going on around you, you would have looked at this situation and said, if I do this, the odds are they will try to come for me. Maybe I should think through or tell my wife she shouldn't. That to me is where I think there is a bit of a disconnect in that for some reason he believed he could. And what we know now and what he even experienced, the sentence he got, everything that happened shows you can't. And I think that's what's lacking here. And I bet you he'll never do this again though. I bet you he's going to think through, and hopefully think through what makes sense and probably ask a lawyer before moving forward on things like this in the future.
Well, maybe he just won't. Maybe he won't have any more kids.
I didn't mean your daughter like personally. I meant you as a representative of all the white people out there.
I understand, but I mean, it's like there is something wrong with raising a child. There is a difference between raising a child to be confident and accomplished through steps that they have to take, and that other thing of telling kids from the time they are born, you are special, you are perfect, you're this, you're that. And there's a difference between those two. And I think Kwame probably got the latter. And it's the same thing that we see in these kids who, do something totally normal and then stand around waiting for their Nobel Prize about it, So, anyway.
Well, I think the easy solution would have been that Kwame, given the supply chain issues that are going on, He should have simply asked not for cash, but for actual diapers, and then turned them around and bought Bruce Springsteen tickets, because right now those are really worth gold. I don't know if you've heard
I
of
have
it.
to
and baby
ask you,
formula.
because I'm a little confused. Is this another one of your clever segues into the next topic, which is
It actually isn't clever, but
oh.
or a segue, but
the Springsteen ticket situation? Well, because this is just the tip of the spear with this. Is how many of these tickets are being sold by dynamic pricing? Is it all of them? Is it
no,
some of them?
it's about 2 to 3%.
Okay, so if
Yeah.
you want the absolute best tickets to see Bruce Springsteen, you are subject to dynamic pricing. If you don't mind sitting back in the cheaper seats, you can
That's
pay
right.
face value.
And well, part of it is based on an algorithm of like the demand for like really good tickets in a place, and having almost like the difference between a fixed and a variable rate mortgage.
Right.
And so that's one of the things that's driving it. Look, if you want to sit in the so-called Shamu splash zone where Springsteen's sweat rains down on you, then yeah, that's worth $5K. But
Yeah,
you can get the monkey paw that way. You better watch out.
And is Bruce Springsteen coming to Detroit, or?
He is. I believe he's coming in March to Ford Field.
Oh wow!
So yes,
I saw him at FedEx in DC, outside of DC. The stadium is not the beauty is the first time I saw him was, I think, 1976 up in Michigan State in a venue that was about 3,000 people, and I was blown away by the quality of the sound and the acoustics, and it was just such an amazing concert. But when I saw it at FedEx in DC, it doesn't do him justice, I think.
I think he should play Alvin.
Everything sounds better when you're young and high.
No, you're right. Though that was that same tour. He played Ohio University and played in a similar size hall. That was the cusp of the Born to Run, rocket ship. And so the few people who got to see him on that tour saw something that will never happen again.
Right.
But I don't want to talk about Bruce Springsteen because I find him boring, frankly. What I find interesting about this is the Ticketmaster is essentially becoming a scalper here. I mean, they're cutting scalpers out of the game by scalping themselves using dynamic pricing and algorithms and all this other stuff. But Ticketmaster has always been just an absolute den of terrible people, so I'm not surprised.
So we're going to move then from strategic ticketing to strategic politicking. There's the segue.
Ooh!
Oh, good one. Good one. Putting that PhD to use there, brother.
Looks like the Democrats in Michigan have decided that they would rather face Pete Meyer's opponent in November than face Pete Meyer, who, of course, is one of only 10 Republicans in Congress that voted to impeach the former president, Donald Trump.
Yeah. And tell who he's running against, John Gibbs.
Pete Meyer is running against a total Trump-supporting John Gibbs,
right?
Whom the Democrats are hedging their bets is such an odious candidate that no one on the west side of the state would vote for him. Or would vote for him in the general election, and somehow or the other there will be this gravitation over to the Democratic side. It has been regarded as being cynical, of the highest order, and of course quite a gamble that there's a possibility that someone who has seemed to be a pretty good representative to the western part of the state, and who I'm sure Greg would probably categorize as someone who was feeling a sense of entitlement, being that he is the scion of the Meyer retail empire, is going to be shelved in the interest of winning an election. Allan.
I think, Peter, it's interesting. I mean, if the Republicans want to rebuild a party with some level of decency, he's one of the guys who would be part of that movement, I think. That being said, I don't know that anyone, and you can correct me, I don't know any of the 10 people who voted, any of the Republicans who voted to impeach, have either they've retired or they've been primaried. It's interesting. He's we'll see where that goes on that. But obviously, I don't like that, the manipulation by the parties like that to try to sabotage.
I don't have any problem with the manipulation if it would work. But I think first of all, Allan, you said if the Republican Party wanted to rebuild it in a credible way, do you see any evidence that they have any desire to do that? And I just spent a couple of days in Ottawa County, and I don't know if you guys know what's going on in Ottawa County.
I read in the Detroit News this morning. Are you talking about the what's Trump the guy slate? The what? Excuse me.
There's a slate of people running for the Ottawa County Board of Commissioners.
Oh, and that I don't know about.
And they're I can't remember the term that they used, but if you remember, what happened was that the case in the Sixth Circuit that upheld the masks regulations came out of Ottawa County, and the Ottawa County General Counsel, who's a very conservative Republican, argued the case and won, and it was upheld. This team has come in to fire him and the health commissioner.
Is this the group called Ottawa Impact?
Ottawa Impact. Chance? Thank you, Nancy.
Okay, all right, that's it.
Yes, and I happen to have a case against the general counsel over there, and he has no doubt that these people are going to win, that he will be fired, and they're taking over.
Okay.
I see no evidence that the Republican Party has any interest in becoming a mainstream party again. I don't. And I think
not
that
until they start losing big time.
Right.
And they have to lose hard. And like you said, they're probably not going to lose. I mean, they'll lose some races, but they're, like you said, in Ottawa County, they're probably going to succeed. That's the one, I think their House or Senate race this time is between a mainstream conservative Republican with a Dutch name. I'm really bad with Dutch names. And then the guy who is in-laws with the Maddox.
Right.
And he's total MAGA. So I mean, I think you're right. I think that they're not this. I think this is the party. The MAGA wing is the party for now. But they have to start losing big time before we can invite Peter Meyer back.
I agree. I mean, the Republicans, they were willing to give up the party to give it away to win the White House with Trump, knowing what a horrible human being he is, knowing that he would do crazy shit, and they did it, and now they're still paying for it, and they've gone down.
They're not paying for it, Allan.
They're not paying for it.
Yeah, well,
Greg was right.
The traditional Republicans
earlier.
are paying for it. The traditionals
are, but look, Greg was right earlier. This country's always been divided, and I thought his reference to the Nazis assembling prior to World War II, rallying in the United States, was accurate and important to talk about. But they've never been in the positions of power that they are in now. Look, we're talking about what's happened. The MAGA Republicans appear to represent about 40% of this country.
Mm-hmm.
And if you watched, I think there was a New York Times article about this, as well as a story on CNN. These red states are becoming separate nations within the United States.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
And while Greg was right about how divided the country's been, it's the political control has never been more extremely in the hands of these nuts. Well, maybe in the South, certainly during Reconstruction, but this is, I have no idea. I'm willing to listen to the wisdom of this group to tell me how we're ever going to get this country back to being a place where we have rational discussions. I don't see it.
Well, I think if I can jump in right here, this will happen. we've seen this sort of like thing before, although it's amplified now. It's probably I call this Tea Party to the power of 5 is what it seems like. You might remember, the whole Tea Party movement and how that sprung up. And that was really, a Cheney creation, Dick Cheney creation to win. And, and this is sort of an outgrowth of that. And so it's gonna run its course. And I think Nancy and Bill and you guys are all right. They're gonna, once they start losing, they're gonna do this whole we need to revamp thing and all this stuff. But what's gonna come on top of that are these continued convictions for some of these folks. And I am worried. I do have concern about not an insurrection as much as a what is it when you have like rebels and they're like run around and they blow up stuff and a
rebellion.
Not necessarily insurrection. No, I'm talking about the acts of terror and violence that occur when
terrorism.
Guerrilla warfare.
Guerrilla warfare
Sedition?
Type of thing where more of the Timothy McVeighs start to appear if we don't call this what this is and address it for what it is. And let's not get hung up on the term of white terrorism or white national terrorism or whatever you want to call it. It's just bad. But can I add before you jump in there? Mm-hmm. I just want to to pay attention to the crazy black folks who are allowing themselves to be used, in this kind of thing.
Like who?
Can you hear that? I could, these great pretenders who are showing up.
Are you talking
Gibbs
about
guy.
People like John Gibbs?
Yes, this John Gibbs guy, the crazy psycho lady that's running for Secretary of State. You might recall the brother who was an immigrant from Nigeria early on in the governor's race, who was running around making noise. I mean, these folks who we know are nuts and but allow themselves to be used as a foil, for the MAGA crowd to get their point across. It's embarrassing. It's terrible.
It is. Can I go back to Saeed's original question, which is this okay? And
yes,
I am literally 50% divided on this one because it's, on the one hand, it's what Don Segretti would call a form of rat fucking, which is
there's a little kid watching this.
No, I think Alexis she had to leave.
Alexis had to leave, so she's having a
Actually, she had to leave because of Nancy's mouth.
Okay.
Alexis is remarkably predictive, so I saw that one coming.
Anyway, it's like the RCCC and the DCCC, the Republican Campaign Congressional Committee or whatever it is. They are known for doing these edgy kind of things. They are the people who are behind the nastiest mailers that come, before the primary. It's just, this is kind of their lane. But at the same time, I considered I've considered voting as a Republican in this primary and didn't. I thought I'm gonna vote for Ryan Kelly, because he's the craziest of the bunch, and I want the most beatable Republican to face Gretchen Whitmer. But I ended up being a good girl, and I voted on the Democratic side, which is where my inclination is these days. But it's a risky thing. It's a very risky thing to do because what if John Gibbs wins? Then we will have traded Peter Meyer, who at least has, a great education and is a true patriot and, a brain in his head, for this guy who runs around saying, it's a mathematical impossibility that Donald Trump lost Michigan. It's a mathematical impossibility. It's like, nobody ever asked him to explain that. Like, what does he mean by that? It's like, it's arithmetic. Okay. Biden got more votes, don't give me that crap. But this guy is nuts. And, I would hate to see that happen. So it's a very calculated risk. I mean, it's like, it's playing with fire. So that's,
and Meyer, and I have a picture of myself at 3 years old. My people are from the west side of the state, Muskegon, and Meyer. It was a big deal to go to Meyer. A big deal, man. You can get your toy water gun. You can get all this stuff, and you can also go there.
You can get a horsey ride for a penny. Still,
right? You can, and bubble gum, but you could also get your picture taken. So, you know, I have a picture of me at 3 years old. I wish I could put it up. That I took at Meyer. So I have a soft spot for Myers. Plus that and the cheap bologna, which I never really thought would come in politics.
They're a right-wing Dutch family. Do not let your happy memories of riding the penny pony at Meyer, like, you know, I mean, you know, Peter Meyer would vote with Donald Trump probably 90% of the time, but like everyone with at least a shred of decency, he was repelled by him. And remember, it was his first day at work when he had ended up having to like evacuate like he was back in Iraq, you know, with a gas mask over his head or whatever they call those breathing hoods, you know, and that's what freaked him out. And so please don't romanticize Meyer because you got a squirt gun when you were 3 years old. Okay?
My bologna has a first name.
Yeah. What?
Nancy, I mean, I think that you're being a bit dismissive of retail shopping fetishes.
I do want to say if Greg gets to talk about how much he loved his squirt gun from Meyer, I get to talk about how attractive I find Peter Meyer, who is a rare ginger hottie. He's like right out of like the Dutch gene pool, and he is like, whoa. But
you know,
I'm an old lady. It's disgusting.
It's the 21st century, and here we still have men being objectified.
Well,
I'm actually going to go back off camera because I'm so embarrassed by that.
No, please, Bill. We can finally see you. No more niqab.
He's a hot.
I apologize for that, guys. I apologize that you can see me. It's what, you know, but Nancy, I'm not the hottie that Nancy wishes.
You're fine. Don't worry.
Yeah,
about
Nancy, I'm jealous now. You know, really? Okay.
I also don't think that Seikaly is a good old-fashioned Dutch name there, Bill. So you know, you're already out of the run.
And nobody talks about good old Palestinian names. They just don't. It's just,
oh man, is that a Palestinian name?
Last time my genealogist, yeah.
Okay.
Hey, I always ask Rashida to lead this question. Maybe you can answer it. What's up with the black Palestinians?
I'm sorry, say it again.
What's up with the black Palestinians? I mean, you guys are in Africa. How come I never hear about the black Palestinians?
Well, that's interesting, Greg. Here's my experience. In the Middle East, they discriminate based on religion. They don't discriminate based on color. And the reason is because every family that I know of in the Middle East, my mother was a very light-skinned, blue-eyed woman, and my uncle was darker than you, much darker than you. And so, you know, those issues just don't tend to come up much in the Middle East. By the way, Palestine, my mother's from Egypt. So she was from Africa. I used to get in trouble with some militants at Michigan State because I would tell them I'm more African American than you are, and
right.
I might have been technically correct, but I almost got my ass kicked for it.
Yeah, that's what the South Africans would always say too.
Well, that's because Bill, you didn't have to confront this African American movement from Muskegon.
That's right, Muskegon, Elks Club, baby.
So Nancy, you said you already voted. So Tuesday's, of course, the primaries. Any predictions about any of the races?
No.
Surprises? No.
I saw on Twitter about an hour before we went on the air today that Trump was using Truth Social to talk up Tudor Dixon, short of endorsing her, but signing off with "stay tuned." So he may make a late in the fourth quarter endorsement of Tudor Dixon. I think she's probably going to win, but I don't know for sure. And I don't predict any elections after 2016, which is another reason I have misgivings about, funding the crazy Republican. So this is happening also in Pennsylvania. Democrats
I wouldn't
are.
want to live. I'll tell you, Nancy was right in her analysis, but in the end, I can't vote. I can't vote for any of these nuts because I don't ever want to say I voted for any of those nuts.
Are you talking about on the Republican side?
Yeah.
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 Are
I
you
couldn't cross
Republican?
over to vote for the
I
vote
see.
for the Trump
Okay.
person because
Okay.
the most Trumpian person, so that Gretchen will kick
Right.
their ass.
Got it.
Because I've got to live with myself, and I don't think that I could live with myself for
Well,
voting for it.
that's another thing, part of my calculus too, is that you have to ask yourself, what if this guy wins? What if this guy wins the nomination and then Gretchen Whitmer has a debilitating stroke on November 1st and he somehow wins? It's like, then I would have to live with myself.
This is a far more
It's too
probably ego-driven issue. I don't want to wake up saying I voted for a guy who's endorsed by Trump. I just don't want to do that.
okay.
Yeah,
That's fair
I feel
enough. You have a conscience. That's good.
What do you
It's a
think?
good
What do you
thing.
think about? What do you think about
Listen, you
Michigan?
want to ruin my reputation in the legal community, Nancy?
Bill's a mensch,
He's
as
a
we
mensch.
say in Palestine.
He's a mensch.
As we say in
What
Palestine.
do
You're
you
going to get in
think about
trouble with
Michigan?
the pro-Israel lobby there, Allan. You better watch out.
Yeah, do we want to talk
Well,
about that? Do we want to talk about
Yeah.
that race, the Levin and
That's a great
go
one.
ahead.
Go
And
ahead.
just to keep it
Well,
clean,
I'll
Black
say.
Palestinians came from Nigeria and Chad,
All right.
just to,
I
I'm
would
just letting you know.
say.
Nancy's like, why is he always talking about race?
No, I'm not. Why do we care about Black Palestinians? I mean,
Because they're important. I mean, if we
everybody's
cared more
important. But I
if
mean,
we care more about Black Palestinians, then we could then you could draw more people into supporting Palestine instead of it. People saying they care more about the West Bank than they do the West Side. But anyway, go on.
No,
I'm
you're
sorry.
the one who always says that.
I'm not going to hold my breath, Greg, for anybody caring about the
you came
Palestinians.
up with that little zinger, so you
Oh my
cashed your check
God.
on that one.
Okay,
So, go ahead.
And Andy Levin
Andy Levin. I mean, it's
man.
interesting.
I
Like,
love
it's
you
so
guys.
weird that AIPAC.
We should do this over brunch and drinks one day.
AIPAC is putting its thumb on the scale. They're trying in the 12th with Rashida Tlaib, but she's going to kill it there. I don't think there's any really hope for Janice Winfrey. Janice Winfrey really hasn't put up that much of a campaign, much like previous people who have run against Rashida. When Brenda Jones, terrible campaigner. What we see in the Andy Levin, Haley Stevens thing, I don't know how that all came about. Where suddenly, I can't imagine. I never thought of Haley Stevens as like this, like crazy, like, let's rah rah rah, let's go for Israel and stuff like that. I think what's happened is, and I could be wrong, is that AIPAC has sort of felt its way through. I think you see some of the Jewish lobbyists, even for Adam Hollier, who I can't imagine that's a cornerstone of his campaign, Israel first, here in the 13th congressional district. I think AIPAC is going to make the difference. They've tried to demonize Andy Levin, which is just crazy. I mean, Andy Levin may have a difference of opinion, but I don't even know all his opinions, but I probably share some of the opinions. I'm not for expansion into the West Bank, some stuff like that, which is, it only makes sense if you want to have peace. But AIPAC has really decided to really put the thumb on the scale there. And I think they may I think if there's a difference, if Andy Levin loses, it's going to be because of AIPAC. That's my feeling.
And I think that this is clearly, and I'm going to concede a little involvement in the campaign. So at one time I was a big Haley Stevens supporter. I'm endorsing and giving money to Andy. I think just like the Republican Party doesn't want to rebuild, to talk about this being justice or fairness or anything. AIPAC went after Levin. That's what this is all about. They don't care about Haley Stevens.
We'll
they
teach you.
clearly
We'll
don't.
teach you for
It's
palling around with.
it's an
Rashida.
anti-11. It's an anti-11 thing. And the thing that bothers me about AIPAC is like, look, I'm pro-Israel. I have relatives there, but I'm also pro-Palestinian. But they're so singular in their vision. Is like they can back the biggest racist Jew-hating person, but if they say they like Israel, they're like, okay, you're our guy, and it bothers me. I mean, the same thing. You know, there's a lot of people in the Orthodox community here in Detroit who back Trump because of Israel. They perceive him as, you know, carte blanche for Israel. And I always say it's not good for Israel to give Israel carte blanche because you need an honest broker who can see both sides, and there has to be some give and take there for there to be peace. And, you know, it's not, I mean, with Hamas not recognizing Israel's existence, that doesn't help a very complicated situation as it is. But AIPAC is so singular, and here they are going after, you know, they're trying to demonize Andy Levin. I mean, he's not the devil, you know?
Yeah.
So
They, you know, it's, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Saeed.
No, go ahead, Greg.
I was just going to say, you know, that is an interesting race. I really like Levin, and I really like, you know, Haley as well. I mean, I'm a Democrat. I'm on the executive board. You know, I love those guys. And the Levin that we see now standing on the legacy of the Levin family is different. I mean, Andy has built himself and acts and is pretty much a progressive, but the Levin legacy is moderate. It's not, you know, a progressive kind of legacy. Right. And I think that this hurts him in that race because who he is doesn't necessarily mesh up with the legacy that he grew into, kind of broke away from that. And so I really wish that he would have ran. Oh my goodness, excuse me. In the other race over there that has
Greg, he would have never won in the other race. I mean, I understand that there are a lot of Democrats that are upset about the fact that he didn't run. I'm sorry?
I said he could have. He's the bomb. He's a great campaigner.
He is a great campaigner, but the fact is, you're right. He's a progressive, and that race, that community, is not a progressive community. I think I think Marlenga stands a far better chance. And if what we're really interested in is making sure both these seats are Democrats, I think Marlenga stands the best chance of winning that race. And I think whoever wins this race is likely to win in November. But you know, a lot of my very good friends are divided in this race, and they're mad at Andy for not running. But look, Andy has been an Oakland County person most of his entire life. He's lived in Oakland County his entire life, except when he was away for school. And more importantly, this community is a much more progressive community than the Macomb County, the district that was his father's, that controlled much of Macomb County. And you're right.
Well,
Sandy was no progressive.
Yeah. Bill, did you guys consider the inroads that Democrats have been making into Macomb County? I mean, you know, Macomb had.
I'm not that intimately involved, but I have it. But look, the analysis is that this community is far more his community than the Macomb County community would have been, and I think Carl Marlenga probably represents that community better, and he's a good Democrat. He's going to be a good, solid Democrat. We don't have to worry about him becoming a Joe Manchin.
That's true. But the guy, what is he, like 90? Come on, man.
Hey.
I mean, this would have been great.
Greg, he's my age. Knock it off, pal.
Oh, okay. No. I like Carl Marlenga. Age has nothing to do with it. Look, we look at our presidency. It's when you hit your 70s is when you really hit your stride, man. And so, you know, I'm looking forward to being able to do that and going on Dancing with the Stars with Nancy. We're gonna have a great time.
All right, I gotta ask who's gonna lead in that one.
I was just gonna say they never, that would never happen.
Okay, well, listen,
they put you with a pro for a reason. Go ahead.
before we go to our last segment, I got to ask this question, especially you, Nancy, since you're from Ohio. given what U of M football coach Jim Harbaugh has declared he would do, would it not be a good strategy for Ohio State to send a bunch of people up to Ann Arbor to get pregnant so that Jim Harbaugh simply is going to be addled with all of these babies?
I can't get any sleep.
What do you think about Jim Harbaugh saying that he will be the shelter from the storm, and he will go ahead and sire and adopt all of the unwanted pregnancies from his football players?
Well,
Now,
first
he
of
did
all,
not say sire.
I don't think any of his players.
Oh, sorry,
are,
sorry, I didn't mean sire. Adopt.
I don't think any of his players are capable of getting pregnant unless they're allowing, like, as we say these days, trans men on the team, and I don't think so. I don't know. I mean, it's the one of the comforts of paying no attention to sports ball of any sort is I can just remain. There is a certain area that I can remain completely agnostic on. I think it was a dumb thing to say, and it was what's the word I'm looking for? It was a willingness to have a baby is not a matter of having an extra bedroom for them, okay? Or even more money. It's like it trivializes the decision to have, to continue a pregnancy, to abort a pregnancy, but this is a guy. If I want to know about football, I'd ask Jim Harbaugh. If I want to know about social policy, I'm gonna give him a pass and say stick to sports.
Yeah,
So.
I think Nancy's absolutely right. It's
I can't think of the word I was looking for.
My eldest child happens to be adopted, and so this issue is very, very near to me. The one thing Nancy didn't say is the willingness to have a child and then put that child up for an adoption is very serious, very emotionally gut-wrenching. We were up for we had one birth mother change her mind. That's a terrible situation to be in for everybody. And I'm eternally grateful for my son's birth mother. I will forever love that woman, but you simply can't trivialize these issues by saying, "Oh, well, I'll just adopt these kids," because that woman's got to go through that pregnancy. She's got to go through everything that happens to her body. She's the one who's bearing that risk, and she's the one who has to make the decision that I'm going to give up this child for adoption, and that's never an easy call.
Right.
I got a little emotional when I heard that. I thought it was highly inappropriate and trivializes a very, very important issue.
Good.
Yeah, Bill, God bless you, man.
Amen.
I mean, what do you expect from Jim Harbaugh, a child who grew up in the '80s under Bo Schembechler? I mean, seriously, this guy knows. Yeah, all he knows is about football players getting people pregnant. That was the thing. I mean, come on, man. Yeah, it was a total trivialization. I agree.
What we do expect from Jim Harbaugh, expect from Jim Harbaugh is a Rose Bowl and maybe a national championship and nothing else.
He can't deliver that.
And one other thing, we expect him to lose to Michigan State.
All right. Well, on that note, and Nancy,
Allan, you agree with me, don't you?
Absolutely. Go Green.
Well, you guys better watch out because Wayne State is going to be in the Big Ten one of these days.
Nancy, apropos making the right segue, Allan, over to you.
It's time for Schmuck of the Week.
Grace Carroll from American Coney Island.
Going from Jim Harbaugh to Grace giving us the intro about Schmuck of the Week.
Oh,
Bill.
we didn't hear the whole thing, so go ahead.
It's time for Schmuck of the Week.
Oh, all right, good enough.
That's it. It's succinct. Bill,
come on, Grandpa, get it together.
I might be able to go with Harbaugh now. Originally, mine was going to be Mark Meadows, but I think I'll go with Jim Harbaugh for his
good one.
His adoption.
That's a good one. All right, Nancy.
had to come up with one at the last minute, and I tried to be a little more creative, but this week I'm going with somebody who really needs his own trophy, and that's Alex Jones. The penalty phase of the Alex Jones Sandy Hook situation is going on right now, and it's fascinating to me. I'm following it via Twitter. There's a woman you should follow on Twitter who follows extremism called JJ McNabb, and she's reporting on this hearing. But apparently jurors are allowed to ask questions in this portion of the trial, and they get together and they come up with questions, and then the attorneys get to decide whether or not they'll answer them. And
actually the judge, but yeah.
Okay, it's up to the judge, but it's really interesting. But some of the things that are coming out about InfoWars and Alex Jones himself are, predictably horrifying. And I just hope that the jury's decision is, how much money do you have, Alex Jones? Empty all your pockets, all the dresser change, all the Swiss bank accounts, whatever that amount is, give it to these parents.
He's got some money.
Yeah, I know he does.
I think he's buying diapers with them, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, no doubt.
So, okay. Greg, who's your schmuck of the week?
Oh man, my schmuck of the week takes me back to Muskegon. Woo-hoo. Where my people are. That idiot police chief from Norton Shores that's on the landing page of Deadline Detroit, Robert Shield, is that his name? When he was sitting there sucking up to Tudor Dixon.
The Shield from Shelby Township. He's from Shelby Township.
Oh, no, yeah, the event was in Norton Shores.
Yeah.
Which, way before I had heard about being afraid of going to Southfield in Oakland County when I was, coming up, or even Grosse Pointe. You knew not to go to Norton Shores. But anyway.
You got to go to Grosse Pointe when you were coming up?
That guy.
Hell, as a Palestinian kid, I didn't go there. Not without my passport.
That cop he also said, I mean, if you watch the Grand Rapids shooting where the cop puts a bullet in the back of the guy's head, and and that chief referred to that he was charged as disgusting. I think that guy is a danger, and I think he creates some liability for the township itself. But
totally. I mean, Dana Nessel, get on your job and investigate every case that they've ever done under this guy's leadership, because there's probably a murder in there somewhere that you can bring forward. So that guy is my schmuck of the week. What a jerk, man. I mean, he's just so out of step with the times, and he is a disaster waiting to happen if there already hasn't been one.
A lawsuit.
We just haven't paid attention. I mean, there's a murder. He's gonna end up getting somebody killed.
Yep. What? There you go.
So, all right,
Allan.
I am going to go very local with our former Birmingham jeweler, Joseph Dumichel, who yesterday was sentenced to 12 years and 7 months in prison. He swindled some guy. He was actually, in 2016, he auctioned off Marla Maples' engagement ring from Trump, and then he auctioned off it a second time to the people who bought it. And he's basically an invest. People go to him to invest, and so he got some guy on the hook to say, "Yeah, I've got a $12 million, ring here that I think we can flip pretty quickly for $16 million." And the guy said, "Great." And he said, "Send your money to this bank account to the person who's selling it." Ended up being his bank account, and he kept up with his lavish lifestyle. And now, surprise, he's going to, and the judge said, "I'm taking into account that you really swindled about $25 million out of investors." And so he got 12 years for a jeweler, 12 years, 7 months. That's a lot of time for federal time.
Yeah, it is. More than Kwame ended up having to serve.
Yeah.
Is this the Dumichel with the gallery downtown?
I think there was some relationship there.
Family.
It's a family, but a different one. Yeah.
When I saw that name, I was like, oh, God,
I thought the Dumichels all lived in Grosse Pointe, but
that's what I was saying, Nancy. I was like, oh my God, please don't let him be from Grosse Pointe. Which is where all the big criminals seem to come from. The guy with the submarine, the guy with the plane, going back to the Jackalonis. It's like, Jesus Christ. There's the
Birmingham has better shopping.
Toco, all those.
Right. That's crazy, man. Okay. If you guys find me floating in the river, you know why I know.
Well, I'm
All
going to
right.
go ahead and I'm going to do one on behalf of Alexis. So a health official in India is being investigated for allegedly having vaccinated 30 students in Madhya Pradesh province with a single syringe. Jitendra Rai, who was vaccinating the children, told the media he was only given one syringe by the health department and was just following orders. Parents who accompanied their children spotted the issue. When state officials reached the school, Mr. Rai was shockingly missing from the school and his phone was turned off.
God.
My
Good.
schmuck of the week, though, has to be Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, Samuel Alito, who
that
at a
guy.
conference on religious liberty being organized by the University of Notre Dame Law School in Rome, decided to mock world leaders for their outrage and comments regarding the Dobbs decision. So among those that he targeted were French President Emmanuel Macron, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, outgoing Prime Minister of Great Britain, Boris Johnson, who it seems like Alito took a particular relish in trying to create causality by saying, well, he mocked me, he mocked the decision, and he's on the way out. And then, of course, also that great oracle of all things American, the Duke of Sussex, another ginger Nancy, Prince.
Not as hot as Pete Meyer, though. Go ahead.
and not nearly as Dutch. Prince Harry. So the idea that Associate Justice of the Supreme Court is going around not only gloating, but
complaining that others are complaining about.
Complaining that others are complaining and mocking world leaders. Last time I checked, not part of the judicial branch's portfolio of things to comment upon at all. Samuel Alito, for many reasons, you are my schmuck of the week. So there we go.
All right.
Okay.
You usually give at least one Supreme Court justice in this schmuck of the week. At least once a month.
It seems to work out. I mean, and who would have thought? Usually, I mean, the term only goes from October to June, but here we have, even in an off month, Alito managed to keep it active. Bill Seikaly, Greg Bowens, Nancy Derringer, thank you all for joining us. Thank you, audience, for joining us on this week, the week that was. And Allan with the final word, as always.
Drive home safely.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.